Hey and welcome, Miss Kira Speaks. Please do me a huge favor, stick around to the end of my video. You know the drill. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. We're back again for another episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta Season 15, Episode 2, Sisters Before Misters. Now, I know this is going to go up super duper late, so we're going to run through this thing super duper quick. The episode opens and we're where we left off in episode 1. And Kenya is saying that Martel slid into her DM at least 6 months ago before Sheree, and that she just wants to be upfront before anybody else brings her the news. Martel comes over and he says that every time he comes to Atlanta, he's always with her. So the other girl must be getting the short end of the stick. And if you deal with a narcissist before, you know that it's not a no. As you know, in episode 1, Candy and Courtney, they had a thing going on. So somebody had pulled Candy to the side to kind of diffuse the whole situation. The whole thing was utterly stupid if you ask me. Sonya goes over to check on her and she mentions that she met up with her with Sheree. You know, Don Juan's like, oh, she's friends with Sheree. That's what this is. And it is. And Candy, she wasn't happy that Sonya didn't give her a heads up on the whole situation, which, I mean, I guess you got to understand her on that one. So Sonya tells Sheree and Kenya what happened. And of course, Kenya's got to go over to check on her girl. So Sheree comes over and now we're all in this same general area. And then Courtney comes over and Kenya wants to know why is she here, especially after what happens. And you have to understand her on this one. Sonya's thrown on outfit number 2 and she's looking cute, but she's got to go because it's her husband's party. So she's not here for the drama. Okay, girl, but you made sure that they got the drama on tape so that your particular event would be aired. We know how the housewives go. So as Martel comes back over again, now Kenya's calling him aggressive before he's even quite got to say anything. And you know that's going to be a bone of contention. She says that she's not accusing him of anything. And Martel is like, she probably accepts everybody's DMs. Sir, you wish. And even if she did, she didn't accept yours. But don't try to play Kenya. So Kenya, she's insulted. Martel, he denies that he even sent a message. Then all of a sudden he comes back over and now he has the message, and the message is from 2 years ago. Now somebody was saying, I can't remember where I heard it, but that it was a screenshot of the message, child, or a different account. Who knows? Who cares? Like I said, whole thing, well actually I said it about the Candy Courtney thing, but this is another thing that's straight up BS. I even had in my notes, I call BS. So then Martel goes on to say that I don't care if I tried to F you 2 years ago. Why are we talking about it now? Red flag, y'all, red flag. I got to get my red flags. I don't know where I put them. And then Martel walks away and Kenya follows. And this is where things start to get heated up and she's screaming, once a cheater, always a cheater. I mean, she's not wrong. Kenya is basically saying this is the same behavior as Bob, and you know production is gonna cue up the footage of Bob talking about the incident with his hands in Sheree's neck. And Sheree, she's just busy defending Martel. Everybody kind of leaves and it doesn't really go anywhere, and we're gonna get into the end of the episode where Kenya and Sheree meet up to discuss the whole thing after they discussed it with everybody and their mom this episode. So we'll get into it a little more then. Like I said, everybody leaves and we move on over and we're over at Drew's house where she's finally back home. Ralph and the daughter, I think her name is Anya, they are arranging flowers for her when she comes in, and she's talking about her trip to Chicago. Drew's dad, he's in a nursing home, and she talks about his care and how, you know, he's in a wheelchair and he wasn't in a wheelchair when he left. And she's kind of speaking to the lack of care that he's getting there, that he's kind of all by himself, but we also find out that her dad has Alzheimer's disease. She says that when her mom came in, they kind of played a video of Drew singing and they show it, and he kind of perked up and it's kind of like he recognized, you know, Drew and her mom, which for those of you who have anybody that has dementia or Alzheimer's, you know that that's a big deal. Drew brings up that her dad used to sing back in high school and she wants to get back to music herself. She brings up that she's been signed to record labels before, like Slip Inside. She was also in a girls group. I knew none of this. I knew Drew Sidora from the game. And also she was in the TLC movie. So she has a new single out. It's called You Already Know, and it's written and produced by Ralph. The producers are asking if they're in a good place, and they are saying, or I think Drew is saying, that the music helps them to focus on something other than their horrible communication. And they're in the best place in years for now. So then they give us a good conversation. They're talking about Ross's party and how Ralph met Courtney, and he found out that Courtney is his cousin. And we see her in the confessional saying that her dad's sister is Ralph's great aunt. So Drew wants to know what happened with Candy. She heard Candy got into it with somebody, and Ralph's like, yeah, I think that was my cousin Courtney. And Drew's basically like, oh, so y'all all are related, because you know the Pittmans basically like to get it popping. And I was like, interesting. So let's go on to later on in the episode where we see, because we're going to get Ralph and Drew all out the way. Like I said, we're going to try to make this super duper quick since it's already late. It's just up for the playlist, and hopefully somebody will watch it. Like I said, we later get a scene. It's with Drew and Ralph. They're in the studio, and we get to hear this song, You Already Know song. It's pretty cute. Drew says that she wants to work on her EP, and she's doing it independent, and that singing Happy Birthday to Sheree last year is kind of what inspired her to get back to her love, her dream of singing. She says she wants to talk about all that she's been through, and that music is kind of therapy for her. You know, Ralph, he wants to talk strategy, and she's telling the engineer/producer that their marriage is what inspired the song. The engineer/producer, he asked about the dynamic of the two of them working together. Drew says that the studio is their happy place. It's a connection. It brings them together, and it brings balance into their marriage. She says that the communication is better, and then they're in a confessional, and he's agreeing. And she says, it all started with music, even from their first date. So now Drew's excited. She wants to sing her song for this guy live. And, they've already airdropped the music to the guy. Before he heard it, he thought it was cute, little bop. So she's going to sing, Acapulco. And they pull out the keyboard, because Ralph's like, pull out the keyboard because I can get to, So she sings. She sounds pretty good. Ralph, he plays on the keyboard. And then all of a sudden, Ralph is bringing up, because the guy said something about doing an acoustic version of the song. And Ralph's like, oh, you know what you should do? A tiny desk. I guess. And if Ralph simply wasn't Ralph, this whole thing might just work out. So we see Sonya and Candy. Like I said, we're going out of order, but I just want to put all the Ralph and Drew things together. Sonya and Candy, they meet up to eat and, shoot the ish. They talk about getting the kids back together again, because apparently Candy had a trip to Disney and she invited everybody. And while it looks like most people didn't go, Sonya did show up, and they had a really good time. If you watch Candy speak on it, she had said after the end of season 14 that, she got to know Sonya, and her and Sonya were friends. And yikes, I don't trust Sonya as far as I can throw her, but Candy has a kind heart, even though y'all don't want to give it to her. Well, not everybody, but anyway, so Candy talks about having a lot on her plate. Sonya is basically saying that Ross wants them to have their own space now, that her mom wants to move to Florida, and her sis is ready to go, because you already know what that's hitting for. And Sonya says she wants them to stay. And I say she definitely should not have another baby. They discuss Todd wanting to do things and Candy not putting the same effort into his dreams. And Sonya says she can relate. And I was like, okay. So then they get back into this party, and Sonya talks to Candy about what happened with Courtney at Sheree's house. Apparently, and production shows us the footage, Miss Courtney has said that there was at some exclusive venue, and then Candy shared it to her Instagram story or something to that effect. And after they left, that, Candy basically brought all the hood out. Child, yeah, Courtney says that Candy shared it to her Instagram, and Candy wants to know, well, when she said that, when she was talking about me, what did you say? That's a good question, Candy, and many of us want to know. That's always the question you have. If your friend is with somebody that ain't really feeling you, and they popping shit, and your friend is bringing back the BS, if you have it, what did you say, friend? What did you say in my defense? Courtney said, I said, Candy's my friend, and you need to talk to her. So you didn't take up for me, and production rolls that beautiful being footage, and she indeed did not. Then Sonya gonna say in her confessional and later to Candy that Courtney wasn't calling Candy ghetto, she was calling her people or her fans ghetto. Okay, Sonya. Candy basically says that she needs someone that's going to take up for her. And again, that is not Sonya. So this friendship may have to go on its merry way. Then later, they show us this quick scene, and I'm throwing all these small things in as we go through so we can get through this thing quickly. It's a scene with Sonya, and she's on FaceTime, I can't remember, or the phone with Ross. And he's always on the road. How are we going to make a baby? Don't. I just said that. And to me, it sounds like, and it was so funny because Nita said the same thing before I can get mine recorded up to say it, but it seems like Ross has a whole nother family in the state of Texas, if you ask me. Like I said, Sonya does not need to have another baby. It doesn't even seem like she wants to have another baby, and all her family's trying to leave. So all the help that you had that you were saying you didn't have, you're not even going to have that, and he's going to be on the road because he won't dissolve this business and start it over again in Georgia. But child, I digress. That is all for Miss Sonya and Mr. Ross. So Candy and Todd, they're over at Blaze, and we hear from Candy that the area is a little bit urban, and you know how things used to be different, but the panorama has brought about a whole bunch of changes so that they need to rebuild, and they're there to check out a few new items that they're gonna redo the menu. Todd wants to open a Mexican place and a pizza place, and Candy's kind of like, where your passion is your creative. But Todd is saying that this is the most money that he's ever made, so he's gonna keep opening up these restaurants so he could take that money and put it into, producing his own stuff independently. And this is what y'all doing to poor Todd. Y'all always talking about Todd's pockets, so Todd's like, I'm gonna go ahead and get this money with this business, so I ain't gonna ask Candy for nothing. Child, if y'all would just leave Todd alone, maybe Todd would stop opening these business. Go ahead and have a Taco Tuesday or put pizza on one of the menus. But anywho, because y'all know restaurants have a high failure rate. So anyway, Candy's cousin comes in, and almost immediately production wants to know, like, hey, so we're not going to talk about the elephant in the room. Todd is basically saying it's a legal thing, so he doesn't want to talk about it. So we also see the ladies are in their confessional. They're kind of talking about it. Kenya doesn't want the rising crime in the area to trickle into Candy's restaurant. Really, her friend. Sonya is basically saying how, things are shaping up are scary. And Sheree, forever with a dig, is talking about, you don't know if you're going to get biscuits or bullets. And some of y'all thought that was funny, but it's not. And I think what Candy was doing is she wanted to let the man warm up first before she jumped right into the conversation. But in her confessional, she does go on to explain that an employee came in and he was late and he was intoxicated. He got irate with her cousin, who was some type of manager, kitchen manager. The two of them go outside, and it results in her cousin getting shot. So Candy says basically it's unfortunate. You don't want the drama at your business, or but luckily for her, people are still supportive. So we get two more quick scenes that are kind of interchanged before we get to our last end scene. Kenya and Brooklyn, they're going to meet Kenya's friend, Akila, whose husband is a running back, and her daughter. And they're going to get their little, Serena and Venus on because they're playing tennis, and it's so cute. And I absolutely love the scenes. I'm talking too fast. I love the scenes with Kenya and her daughter. I didn't bring it up in episode 1, but when she had all the little ball gown princess dresses for Brooklyn, it was so cute. And that's one of the ways I do love to see Kenya is interacting with her daughter, because Brooklyn is absolutely perfection. So after the girls, they hit a couple balls, the moms are over having their conversation, and Kenya's kind of like, she envies their relationship. and she's still trying to get this divorce. And her friend says, but you've been happy, you're looking much better. And we all can agree. They talk about, KMC, Roy, he's the owner of Kill Me Crazy. And Kenya is happy, but if it's not him, she tells her to go ahead and hook her up one of those, football players. So at the same time, Sheree is meeting with Sonya to eat. Like I said, the scenes are going back and forth. Sheree talks about being a grandma to Mecca, who is, she's so cute, but Sheree's son is handsome, so we can see. And child, I don't want to be no grandma. She got that crap from Nene, but just call me a grandma. By the time I get there, hopefully not soon, even though I'm in my 40s, by the time I get to being a grandma, just call me grandma. But that's just me personally. So then they start to talk about the party and the Martel thing and Kenya calling him aggressive, just like she did Ross. And, we can't label these men. Don't exactly remember what I said last season, or even if I recorded or got that video up. You know what? I ain't even going to talk about it. Is Ross an aggressive person? Perhaps not. But that's one of those situations that two things can be true. I don't want to seem like I'm always taking up for Kenya. And Kenya kind of is always in the position where she says it later that she's like the single lone black woman to all these people that are coupled up. And she, kind of feels like she has to defend herself. No, we should not label black men as aggressive if they are not. But if the shoe fits, we're going to get into the Martel and Kenya thing in my comments at the end of this recap. So Kenya and Akela, they're talking about Martel, and she's telling her that Martel DM'd her and that, she didn't want to keep it from Sheree. He says that he didn't DM her and that this was her first time meeting him in person and that, it kind of got escalated. Sheree wants Kenya to take accountability for her actions, and both of them, you can see as they go back and forth, are agreeing that they need to sit down and talk about it. Kenya wanted Sheree to take up for her and basically tell Martel not to speak to her friend like that, but child, let me just get through these notes. So she says that they've both been through abusive relationships in their past. This was Kenya talking. Kenya brings up that Sheree last season had a man fresh out of prison, making her look like a fool, and that she's stigmatized. And Akela's like, at her big age, we said the same thing, Akela. We said the same thing. So we finally get over to our end scene, and we are at Sheree's distribution center, and the people are packing some of her orders. Yes, I'm an air quote y'all to fucking death. And the merchandise is wrinkled and it should be steamed, but that's an extra charge, and we know Sheree doesn't like to pay extra for anything. I said, cheap ass Sheree. They clown, drop it with Drew, and now here we are in this warehouse, girl. Okay, Sheree. So Sheree is going on a tangent talking about the website crashing, and we're getting little clips from people like Kempire. And the bottom line is Sheree is trying to do it all by herself because she's cheap and she doesn't want to pay anybody. And for that, it is a no. What we saw on the runway isn't what she's selling, and it's just like, yikes. So Sheree is saying basically that they have to keep up the momentum and blah, 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 blah. And this is when Kenya walks in looking like a whole vibe. Kenya says it looks like a Dallas Cowboy star. And then we find out that Kenya did a direct TV commercial with some of the other housewives and some of the Dallas Cowboys players. So speaking of Dallas Cowboys, somehow we quickly talk about Roy, and then Kenya brings her right back on over to Sheree talking about her being claimed. No, we're just dating. Sheree brings up that they're both Capricorns, and Kenya's like, oh, because like I used to get along with Capricorns. So now Sheree is like, listen, let's talk about what happened. Child, it's a whole lot of notes, and I don't want to read through them all. So Kenya's basically saying that she was shocked that she didn't come for him. She didn't deserve to be yelled at. She didn't deserve to be cussed out. Kenya said that he DM'd her, and after what she's seen of him on the show, that she's not a fan of his shenanigans. And I said, this is kind of where Kenya is getting things wrong, because she's mixing the two things together, although she's not wrong to have that impression of him, because it seems that truly is who Martel is. Sheree says that he was excited to meet everyone, but that he felt ambushed. And Kenya says that, she doesn't know him and she does not want to know him. Sheree's like, we've talked so many times and you never brought it up. And Kenya's like, oh, I just thought about it. Then Sheree says that she already knew about the DM, and neither of these statements is adding up to me. Kenya, you could add a better explanation. You've had better explanation to speak on it. You had better explanation episode. The explanation was just whack. And Sheree, talk about saving face. Kenya is basically saying that I was before her, and Sheree is saying that it didn't even need to be a conversation. And Kenya wants to know what was so offensive that he felt like he could disrespect her. Sheree, she's just defending Martel, and Kenya's like, it's bros before hoes. And Sheree's about to correct her, and Kenya's like, no, we the bros and they the hoes. Sheree says they have to be careful with their words, and Kenya, you know, she's kind of defending herself, and they're talking about that. I bet you answer everybody else's DMs, and him making her seem like a hoe. And Sheree says, no. She says that she's trying to make something out of nothing. Kenya wants her to hold him accountable of how he acted towards her. But it's okay for you to get in his face, though. Sheree. It's not okay for him to be abusive, Kenya says. So Sheree says, are black people, I think she said black women are men, public enemy number one because you don't have one? Kenya's telling her that she has to look at her past, i.e. Bob, and what she's accepted from men. She hasn't learned the signs, and Sheree wants her to stop labeling black men and women. Kenya points out that she was by herself and that she was standing up for herself. What would you need to get past it? Sheree is asking Kenya, and Kenya says we'll have to agree to disagree. And that's where the episode ends. And with the risk of running too long because this is already old, I will say two things can be true. Some people feel like Kenya waited on TV to have a moment. I will give you guys that one. Because perhaps, but also Martel was way out of line. Yes, Kenya is mixing the shows together. And also, yes, Sheree is ignoring the red flags. And I could get so much further into it, but like I said, because I tend to repeat myself a lot. Since this is so late, we ain't even going to get into it. The Martel and Sheree stuff has me kind of not even wanting to watch the show, but I'm going to keep going. So join me back here for more recaps of RHOA. Until then,